Y-
Well, Jolly, how about we move over to segment 2?
All right. Real quick, guys. Quanta, Quasar, and Virtual AI. On 24 May, RSI put out a video featuring Tony Z. It's 40 minutes long. It's very extensive. It's very informative as for what the game is going to become. If Jacqueline, I get you to just copy paste that link over to the chat. Don't bring it up because it's too long to go through the whole thing. It's worth your time after the show, tomorrow, whenever. Take a look at it and spend your time with it. Very technical, but very worthwhile to understand how the game is being developed. Quantum and Quanta they've matured quite a bit. Now, what Tony calls Quanta, I call it NPC AI. Call it what you will, doesn't really matter to me. They've made vast improvements with it. They're improving the game with it. We haven't seen all of it yet in game. Hopefully, we'll at some point in time in the near future. They also include a lot more. He's speaking a lot more about the virtual NPCs that are out there. Basically, when you play the game, NPCs that are in the game itself, when we are within scanner range of them, we see them on our scope. Visual range, we start seeing their ships. When we're outside of both those things, those NPCs are still there, but we're not wasting time and bandwidth on having them loaded onto our screen because we don't need to see them at all. They disappear for us, but they still stay with the game, and they move around as a real player would possibly do. He gives some examples of that. He actually does a walkthrough with a pirate he calls Dragon, which he talks about how if I run across a NPC pirate at some point in time, I battle with them within a comm range, which means it's all been recorded by the game itself. Then that pirate shows up, gets a crime stat, and we know what's going on with him. Now, eventually, that pirate, that NPC, will leave my range. He'll disappear off of my game. He'll still be in the game itself. If he leaves the comm range, the last known position of that pirate was where I last saw him. Last time it was reported to the comm system itself. And that if he has a bounty on him, also that we report everybody else. Last known position was at that system itself, those coordinates, whatever the case may be. Then he enters a new area that may or may not have a comm connection with it. If it doesn't, he will not show up. If it does, he will show up again, being over this other new area, a new last known position. They'll update the bounty on him, if there is one, to go ahead and hunt him down. So he's trying to explain how try to make the game more realistic. The NPCs are still there in the game, even though he's trying to minimize the amount of bandwidth and computer strength we need in order to see all this stuff. One thing that really came through to me was the amount of NPCs that are played in the game itself, and they really do dominate it. We were told all along, this isn't a surprise, players make up 10% of the population in the verse. And so there's 90% of the NPCs that are out there playing around the verse, and we may only see 10% of them, but trust me, the other 80% are still doing what they're supposed to do in the game. Noam, I know you saw the same video I did. What's your comments on what Tony's trying to get across to us?
Well, you pretty much summed it up. Honestly, it's a lot. That video is a lot to unpack, but it's just I really like that they're basically showing how the sausage is made. As far as I really like that. A lot of games they like to leave this vague. You don't really know where it starts and stops, but I like they're spelling out so we get an idea of just how far-reaching this is trying to be. It's just this is one of the things that they need so many different pieces for this to work. But if they pull that off, it's just going to make for this is pretty much key to be able to have true dynamic events, dynamic encounters and stuff in the game without everyone seeming scripted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say that, but it's
But showing here on the screen right now, just real quick, those green dots, those are NPCs. Those aren't players.
Quanta. Those are Quanta.
That's the Quanta.
Quanta,
yes. Not
That's
NPCs.
the Quanta. Those are the AI ones that aren't physicalized in the game at all.
But they show the impact that we have. In this particular description that little video we saw previously, Tony was talking about how a mining area was found, and maybe by a player, whatever the case may be, They start mining it. However, the word gets out, and all of a sudden, the Quanta or NPCs realize it's there. They start hogging it too. They start drawing away from it. So, as much as I like to think that the game is a player-based economy, it absolutely is not. This is not
No.
ease. It's going to be definitely a game-based economy, and the
Yeah, 'cause-
NPCs will drive.
Yeah, Charlie, and this is where one of my concerns is when they were doing that explanation of the Quanta finding he started off by saying, the Quanta exploration ship comes along and finds the planet and finds the gold, reserve. Then he sends that out to his Quanta organization, and then they begin to go in and begin to take and mine and to actually deplete that gold deposit on the surface. My issue with this is that the Quanta themselves, being non-rendered in the game, non-physicalized, unless they build some sort of governors into the attributes that they were talking about, because it's a great way of looking at, how you can mimic real life. But unless they build in some governors, those Quanta don't have to worry about spawning a ship. They don't have to worry about getting the ship out. They don't have to worry about, getting to where they need to go, all of which in Star Citizen now, as we all know, takes anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes to really go and do something. And by the time you get to where you need to be, the gold may be gone.
Well,
Yeah.
they have
so
said,
how are real players going to be able to react in time enough to be able to get in on the benefits? And so I think some in the presentation that was shown, the examples of which the players interacted with the quantum system are all in what I call combat related encounters. You pull, you're hitting a bounty hunter, you're pulling somebody out of quantum, you're reacting to a service beacon that's being put up by the Quanta, that's being attacked by the Quanta pirates. There's something of that nature. I'm not so sure how real players are going to be able to get in on the economy side of it, without being, just again, a large organization where you can spread yourself out over many time zones, many hours, many days to be able to look at stuff. No.
You're right.
Well-
You're absolutely right, Turn. I agree completely. My hope is that they develop something. You're familiar with the commodity alerts right now. They're in the game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, right now, those are pretty damn limited. They're, to be honest, they're disorganized. They're a pain in the ass to look through. It's not a matter of I could scroll down and find a specific location saying what's over and understocked. I have to scroll through everything to find out. Lorville, for example, might show understocked and something, overstocked in something in one area. Scroll down, there's Lorville again, understocked and overstocked in something else. They really need to rework on that one and get it more organized so a player would quickly figure out, like a trading board, a stock market board, saying what's selling, what's buying, and where to go to get those. That needs to be worked on quite a bit in the game itself. Otherwise, we will always get hind teat in order to figure out some way to earn credits to the game through the commerce part of the game itself. So
Right.
a lot of ways to go on that. I know they're still developing it. I do hope the commodity alerts or something better than commodity alerts are developed out there. A board I can go to in the game, that's fine. I don't need to get it outside of the game, but in the game, I can take a look at and figure out, okay, what's the good trading route for this point in time right now? I know it'll be different tomorrow, but right now, where should I go to buy and sell? And we'll wait and see on that one, but
I think that's got to
I'm
be on your
concerned.
Moby Glass. Between you, me,
Moby
and the wall,
Glass?
It-
it's
Great.
got
it
to
has
be
to
on
be
the
a
Moby
ready
Glass.
access to it. Yeah.
Yeah. You need
what
to be
they-
able to pull it up wherever you're at.
Well,
I would like-
also, I mean, data running's got to be part of that too, right? I mean, what are they going to wind up doing?
Well, I was kind of thinking data running is more of information in terms of jump coordinates, or like you
commodity
said,
prices
you're
could
right.
be.
You're right. Well, commodity prices, but locations to mine, locations to
Yeah, fair enough.
buy.
My thing is,
something like
if
that.
the Quanta can get it in real time, the players need to be able to get it in real time.
Yes. Well,
I
he
would-
did say in the video, he shared amongst his organization that the Quanta shared amongst the Quanta's imaginary organization. So I kind of get that, but word does get out, and players should get as much as the Quanta does.
I got a little something I want to say on that there. When it comes to getting the word out, when they find the resource, like he said, when you were talking about players left getting the refuse and what's left over because they didn't get there in time, that's going to be part of the testing when this starts rolling out. Is we're going to have to they're going to find out, okay, how long does it take the average player to get there, to get their ship spooled up, to get out to the location, and they're going to have to adjust. They have those times baked into the Quanta as far as their travel times from point A to point B and all that. So they may find they have to add X amount of time to that trip to make them equal what a player would do. Conversely, when we find something, it's the same thing. We're going to start sharing it with our members. The system is going to assume the word gets out. I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, we're just going to claim this sector of space. We're going to claim this area of a moon. Now, the UEE won't say we own it, but we're just going to claim that area and it's ours. That might work. Maybe you can make that work with other player organizations. But these Quanta are going to, like you said, it's going to start leeching off that same resource that you discovered. Because you found it, they're showing up, and you can't control them. But then
you can't see them.
Right. But then the virtual NPCs are showing up, and then they become subsumption NPCs when you get within range of them. What are you going to do? Since the NPCs account for 9 out of 10 of the population, you're going to start engaging them.
Yeah, shoot
and
everything.
fighting every random organization in the universe. You got a lot of enemies all of a sudden, and now that's going to change how the Quanta behave. And then there's going to be if you're engaging certain groups, you may have certain faction security showing up to kick your butt.
Yeah,
so
you're going to be pushing up. Go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
I would say that the thing there is that gives an advantage to bigger orgs, because when you do find something, you're going to want to do a pile on to get it all dug out of the ground as quick as possible before the Quanta leeches it away.
Fly softly and carry a big javelin.
Well, no, I'm not saying don't attempt to fight them. What I'm saying is if the Quanta is going to deplete the resource, once you discover it, you're in a race to deplete it quicker than they can take way too much of a percentage.
But Jay, that's only an issue on a large scale, though, for an org like us. For an individual or a couple of guys playing together, what they're collecting isn't very huge on the scale. They're probably not going to cause much of a blip in Quanta behavior.
Yeah, no. but the resources they need to operate aren't as great as the resources we need to operate as a large organization. So I think what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up pushing these probability envelopes. Is what I forgot exactly what he talked about. Probability areas. That was, to me, a very fascinating part of the Tony Z video. Was how they're doing things is that they're setting up these probability areas, and it's all based on factors such as number of ships moving through, demand on one end to sell, the security that's available, the pirates that are available, and it's all dynamic in how you do things. And his example was you move a mantis or an interdiction ship out into this area, and you throw up your quantum interdictor. And what that really does is it enhances the probability in your favor that you're going to pull something out. And doing this kind of probability stuff, we used to do it in old Dungeons and Dragons by the roll of the dice. So, you're rolling your dice and you're doing everything you can to make that roll in your favor. And I think that's what you're going to be doing as a large org when you find these locations. You're going to be, surging resources to be able to put that probability window in your favor, so that you'll be able to to take on whatever comes down the pipeline with it.
And I think Nom's right. I think if you're in a 5-person org, you're a flea and therefore not going to be, the Quanta isn't going to notice you. But if you're in a medium-sized org, and you got 20 or 30 people on something, the Quanta may become a real issue. It may become a real issue from a pure leeching off of your percentages, because you can't pull the resource out quick enough to take advantage of it.
Not only can you not pull the resources, you can't send it to the refineries. You don't run the factories. The Quanta control, for lack of a better term, the entire economic loop, and players are going to have to try to insert themselves at points along that economic loop. And I think the examples that he was giving today, and it's again early on, just starting out, and just like Nvidia said, they've got to go through testing just like they do everything else and see if it works or it doesn't work. But where the player was inserting themselves in this quantum, process, are at those interdiction points, the combat pieces of it, the bounty hunter guy that's trying to find that somebody there. I didn't get a whole lot of talk or really confidence about player organizations that want to run a commerce-based, application within the game. So
yep.
We'll see.
And keep in mind, I don't think Shepcap's mentioning this, and I'll toss it over to him next. I don't think we're talking about controlling the economy. I think we're talking about being able to exploit resources to edge things in your favor from a monetary standpoint, not from a upset the economy standpoint. Shap, I'll toss it over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, and that's not what I didn't necessarily mean control. I just know that there are other space games out there where the economy is basically run by players, and if you don't,
it exists because players make everything. Yeah,
right. And if you don't team up with one of those players, you're basically SOL. So that's all I was kind of getting at. And I think what you'll see with the Quanta is if you find a giant deposit of whatever and you surge your resources to it, I think the Quanta will find it, not because you found it, but because all of a sudden you're using more fuel and more parts and more consumable items and things like that. And that will draw more NPCs into the area to support that. And then some of them may or may not stumble on what you're finding.
But either way, it's a race. If you're a large org.
Yeah. Well, I agree 100%. Large org, I think, will have an advantage. But yeah, I know, Josh, did you have some comments on this? I think we may have skipped over you a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. Talking about AI behavior, one of my favorite segments on this video was where they talked about the different types of behaviors or flaws, if you will, that the AI could have. So in this case with the bounty hunter pirate, he got enough money. He doesn't care about making more. He wants to go to the bar and drink. So if this guy violates you, like he said, you might have an easy way to find him because he's going to go drink. When he runs out of money, he's going to go, do some more hunting and whatever to get some more money and repeat that loop. He also mentioned that, if you had more morals or less morals, certain types of jobs would appeal to you. So if you were, a straight arrow guy, it would take maybe 4 times the amount to get you to do some kind of pirate job. But as things got more dangerous and more money came in, maybe that'd be more appealing to you. Maybe it would set you off on a different trajectory. I like the idea of the AI having some type of human characteristics, some type of flaws, so that it makes the gameplay interesting and you see and hear in the universe some of the types of things we saw and heard in the Javelin that were more real and effective. Because to me, that's immersive, that's interesting. And if you learn about a particular AI that you're looking for, maybe it's part of the loop that you understand him more and you can kind of predict his behavior. In another video, I think that came out today, they talked about AI behavior, and they specifically mentioned that when you hire an AI, that it would be able to be assigned a task to repair a certain component on your ship or do certain things. So maybe when you mix it all together, you get a guy who maybe does a better job or a worse job, depending on whether he just had enough money in his bank or whether he really likes his job or whether he's just doing it for money. So I want to see those things. I want to experience that side. And yeah, we're going to be interacting and fighting with the AI, but I love the idea that there's going to be some level of realism with them.
I don't want AI that just had their girlfriend dump them and they're not really going to be able to do the job.
That sounds
That's
too
a
much
little
like
bit
real
too
life.
much behavior.
Our peers will love that.
Yeah.
Jolly, do you want to move on to the
Django,
go ahead.
Could you put up the slide dynamic economy? Just one slide there.
She's got it ready
this
for
is
us.
just a snapshot, and that's it. But if you watch the video, this thing goes through massive movements. And Tony talks about how the far left side is where the item or whatever the case may be comes from through intermediary over to the final product for sale. and it adjusts like crazy. And the proof to me is that we, the players, are not in control of the economy. The game is in control of the economy, and we're going to have to get used to that and respond accordingly as best we can. But understand, you cannot dominate a sector. Remember the old days where it was like, hey, I had this great trade route. It would last from days to days, weeks on end. Fly to here, then there, and sell that, and whatever the case may be. Those are gone. Now it's a matter of you're simply going to have to respond as things come up and change. There's no longer a great route to take. You have to discover them yourself.
And they did mention that they would have the ability to tweak it. So if they had some special event or if they wanted to introduce something, they could make localized changes to cause certain effects. So I thought that was interesting too, to give them a way to make it so you were incentivized to go somewhere or whatever.
Yeah, I like the fact that he was able to track that shops on Area 18 were running out of the product, so they were shifting buying to Hurston. You know, that kind of thing is just fascinating.
But we better be able to get that information just as quickly.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things,
stock market, man.
Exploration.
Stonks.
We've always talked about exploration from the stellar sense, going out there and finding and exploring, stellar phenomenon. I think, orgs to be successful are going to have, financial explorers who are going out there and looking, hey, I just dropped into this system. Gas is out the wazoo here. Okay. I mean, it's really, really bad. Something must be going down. The shops are empty with this and this and this. And so having that information being fed back in a loop that your organization can take and process is going to be, for those large organizations, if you're the 4 or 5 guys, you're just hosed.
Well,
but
what we've had forever is the TDD, the Trade Development Division buildings, where you see they got that big ticker up on the wall. I think that was always planned years ago to be like one of our sources of that kind of information. But Jay's right, that kind of information can be there, but it really needs to be accessible via the mobiGlas as well, because we can pull up a web page here to pull up information like that.
Well, the flip side of that is that they're going to cause that to be time delayed, and this is where a big org with a big resource network is going to come in huge. You're going to be able to come in and out of game communicate, because let's be honest, that's just going to happen. There's no way around it. And come in and say, hey, gas is super high, quantum fuel is super high here, and they need a bunch of it. And we'll be able, before it shows up in the TDD ticker in Hurston, let's say, we'll know that we need to start to send a large a large shipment out over to there and get a couple, a half hour, an hour's head start on the competition. Well, that's where you're going to be in a huge advantage, in my opinion. Josh, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I've been exploring the bounty hunter advancement and reputation system and trying to build up higher in that. And I just wonder if maybe as you build more allies or friends or higher levels, maybe you get better information as part of that and you have more access faster. But I do think it's important to be competitive and to have that advantage, because knowledge is power, and you need to know where to be. So I'll be curious to see how they integrate that with everything they're doing.
Completely agree. Chap, what are your thoughts?
I think we've hit on most of the good points here. I think there's going to be a huge element of this that is, for lack of a better term, word of mouth. You got to have people in the right spots who are tracking this kind of stuff in the org, or some way to, when you land, you download a file of like a current look at the stock market there, and then you can beam it to whoever, or something like that, so that you can add it to their database and update everything.
It's almost like orgs with IT teams might have an advantage, huh?
Well, I also think there's going to be an API at some point that's going to come out.
Sure,
I think they've talked about it, and I think that'll be a thing, but perhaps it'll be delayed, as was mentioned earlier.
Well, or if you have enough collectors, i.e. members that are running a piece of software pulling from their local API, and
build your own. Yeah.
Build your own. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You end up like Elite that builds their trading apps off of that, because that's one of the things that they do in Elite is that every time you land at a space station, the market information can be gathered and pushed out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's where I was basically stealing the idea from.
Yep.
Yeah.
The one thing we haven't talked about is what about will we have the ability to invest in AI run organizations and get a return on our investment?
Bitcoin.
That might
Oh
be
God,
interesting.
no.
Commodity exchange.
Space coin.
Space NFTs.
No.
Robert's coin.
Wow.
Wow. Don't give
The
them
hell's
any
Dogecoin
ideas,
taking
chap.
off? Why not
Robert's
Robert's coin?
We're
Next
just
week,
going to
Jay,
print
real
our
quick.
own money.
Economy. Okay, we pretty much covered that one pretty well.
We
One
did.
thing that Tony did bring up was mission analysis. Johnny, can I get the mission analysis slide up there? Real quick. Not that one. Yeah, that one right there. No, you got it, Joni. Thanks. Perfect. RSI is actually tracking these missions we do, game missions that are given out to us, as far as success, failure, completing or not completing the whole darn thing. And what they're finding is there are certain missions that indeed players are completing. They're completing it quickly without any real problems. And there's other missions that are almost as we can't do them at all. And I'm kind of wondering, they did not list specifically what these missions were. I'm kind of wondering if you see the one, the lower left hand, which means missions that quite simply are being failed repeatedly,
Almost
taking a
always.
lot,
Or
almost always. Remember the let's find the dead body in the cave mission? I took that mission a lot, and to be honest, I did it quite simply not to find the 4,000 credits worth of person, but rather to do some FPS mining. And sure enough, those missions I always failed. I didn't care. I wasn't there for the 4,000 credits. I won my 25,000 credits of minerals I could pick up. So
Yep.
I need to kind of wonder. I'd like the more details of that. But it's nice though that RSI is tracking it. They're trying to identify problem missions to correct them, either make them harder or easier, or the case may be. And so it's a good plus for RSI and CIS for what they're trying to do with the game itself.
Well, it's very frustrating when you'd have those mining claims where you'd have to go, take out the claim jumpers, I think it was, and you'd go there and there'd be nothing there. Nothing would happen, and you just sit there over and over. So I'm glad they've found a way to identify stuff like that, because that sucked.
Yeah. I think it's a way forward to improve the entire game for everybody, all the players in the game itself.
Yeah, I liked his run through of the dynamic mission generation machine
Yes.
that they have. Where they set up the criteria for the war to start, the criteria for it to end, and how they link it across all servers, et cetera, and then the actual states that they walked it through. I thought that was a really good peek behind the curtain on that.
They said they have 3 or 4 modes coming, so I'm looking forward to them.
My only argument on that is I would have a minimum time set. Give people a week or so or 2 to be able to participate in each phase.
Yep.
Before allowing it to move on. Don't have it where it goes from phase 1 to phase 1 ends and phase 3 completes in 72 hours, where people don't really get to participate in 2 or 3 unless they're on during that.
That was a common complaint and write-up.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
They asked, good credit to RSI. They asked, hey, what went wrong? What went right? And one of the very common thread there was, look, you didn't give us enough time to play the phase 3 part of Xenothreat, and I think they'll adjust it.
Or 1 or 2, or any of them.
1 or 2, that went for over a week.
I mean, like I was on the road. I didn't.
1 did, but 2
well,
didn't.
That's a personal problem, Shap.
Yeah. I should have quit my
play
job
every single day.
I should have quit my job to play the game.
I mean, really?
I think
live for this game.
I think they'll understand. They'll expand that out. So everyone, I agree with everybody here. Give us more time to play this and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's just testing. They were just testing.
Yep.
If I can, if you want to know more about the Quanta, there's also Tony Z's initial description of the Quanta that he did at CitizenCon. Was that 2019 in Manchester?
Yeah.
You can find it there, and it's actually kind of funny because a guy went up to tell him, like, hey, your segment's running over. We need to wrap up the show. And he basically, if he could have murdered him with his eyeballs, I think it would have happened. And then he asked the crowd.
Everyone else in the room too, I'm sure.
And then he asked the crowd, "Do you want me to keep going?" And the crowd basically blew the roof off the place. And Tony just kind of shooed the guy off, and they kept going. It was hilarious. I don't know if that made the video because I haven't watched the video since I was there, but it was definitely worthwhile to see. So I'd recommend looking for that if you want to learn even more about Quanta.
Yes, definitely. Let's talk about dynamic. Have we covered dynamic mission generation yet, Jolly?
A little bit. We talked about the fact that Tony did talk about this Xeno mission. They've learned from it. They plan on having. He said 3 more of these type of missions coming up in the future. I think he said the next quarter, as a matter of fact, or at least 1 per quarter they want to try to do. I look forward to them. I thought they were a big blast to the game. I really enjoyed the Xeno mission. I know there's a Nine Tails mission out there somewhere. I've heard about it. I've read about it. Let's see what comes of it itself. I don't have no details whatsoever, but hopefully it'll come to fruition and we'll get a chance to play that one too.
Turing, thoughts as we finish talking about the dynamic economy emissions?
Yeah, I think Tony mentioned that with Bounty Hunter 2.0
Yep.
that they're going to roll out, you'll see this virtual NPC, be on the plate, and that's when he talked about the probability encounter areas, etc. So I think that's on the cusp of being rolling out, and it's really good. You need to go back and take a look at that. He goes through the various different types of AI and how much that they pull upon the resources. And I was really encouraged that they're trying to do things where they keep the action alive, but they understand that things are resource intense and trying to keep that and marrying those together. So I look forward to those. My only concern again is that it's mainly towards the the combat spectrum, and that might just be simply because it's easier to do that right now.
Yes, I agree. Nom, what are your thoughts?
What was the question again? I'm sorry. I got distracted.
Recapping the dynamic economy, dynamic missions. Are you zoning out there? Do I need to get you some coffee?
I was going to reply to something and my mind went.
It's called getting old.
No, I loved Xenothreat. I thought that was one of the best things they come up with for a while. I know they've been working on that a long time. I'm really hopeful that them saying, "Oh, we're going to have one of those every quarter." That would be awesome. I don't remember Xenothreat. Actually, wasn't it when it actually rolled out? Wasn't it relatively stable and didn't actually have
1, 2? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, because that was actually a good thing that you could bring someone new into the game and they would enjoy. What bothers me is a lot of these things they'll tell you, "Oh, we're going to have this event, so we're going to make it a free fly."
Yeah.
It's almost counterintuitive because you're pretty much guaranteeing somebody who's been thinking about checking out the game is seeing the game in the worst state it's been in a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
I agree.
Yeah.
It's
not
counter
great impression.
It works against itself. So they really need to give us some free flies where there is nothing going on and the game is relatively stable.
I completely agree.
Because I got friends, I can't get them to play the game right now because they really can't play it.
Well,
but they could have a month or two ago.
What about just opening up? They have a PTU where you go and do a PTU. Why don't you just open up a free fly PTU where people can go in and go for a week, fly 6 to 8 ships. They can't keep them, but you can sign up and get your account active for a week, and you just go there and do your free fly stuff. Well, and at the end, they send you a nice little email and said, "I hope you've enjoyed Star Citizen. If you want to go and explore more, here's how you do it."
Well, don't give the PTU for free fly because
no, a PTU I'm saying a PTU, a separate
free
server.
Fly during the PU. Well, the rest of us are doing PTU. Maybe that would work.
I could see that. Like you have live, and we see PTU, and then there's a third entry that says
free fly or public
free fly servers. Free fly servers.
New people need a stable environment. They don't need the biggest thing going on because we're already sold. We know what the game is. We know what the game is
delivering currently.
We're willing to accept a lot of instability, so we can deal with mostly what's going on now with it eating up RAM. But
after 7 years, you can't stop now.
Yep.
Right.
So,
but somebody brand new, they're going to see this and say, "Well, yeah, this game's a failure. I'll check on it in a couple years if it's still around."
Yep.
So it works against itself.
before let's take a pause there real quick before I hand it off to Josh for his thoughts. Let's see from the viewers. We're up over 100 viewers. I think we're number 3 or number 4 on the Twitch list right now. We're running up at the 1 hour and 15 minute mark. Do you guys want us to go ahead and wrap it up, or do you want us to cover the Nova tank during this episode? If you want to have us talk about tanks and armored combat during this episode, please give us a talk in chat, and we'll see if there's enough desire for talking about the tank. Josh, over to you. What are your thoughts about this dynamic gameplay and the quantum stuff?
You know, my first memory of anything in this game was going in when we had the first hangars. I had a 325A because I think I'd asked you what's the closest thing to an F-16 because I've been flying a flight simulator. So I had it. I remember it was really buggy. The only thing you could do was walk around the hangar. I think maybe you could get in and out of the ship. You couldn't fly. You couldn't do anything. And I remember the first time I went in the PTU and I realized I had a major realization that, oh my God, I need a ship that can carry cargo. I need a ship that can take me some distance and not just do combat. It was a new way of thinking about the game. When I look at where we are now and I look at what's hopefully coming this year with iCache and server meshing, I'm really excited to see the bits and pieces of things come together, to see the dynamic economy have effect, to see the character behavior from the AI, to see the interactions that we have, and how it's going to shape our fleets and our behavior as an org and individually. I think we are finally getting to the point where we are going to see the kind of gameplay that we've wanted. We're going to see the kind of gameplay where large orgs show their benefit, where the different roles of the ships show their benefit, and where you begin to get a little more immersed and want to go into a certain game loop and understand it. I've been enjoying the Bounty Hunter game loop. I'm trying to get up a bit higher in it. So I guess I'm just excited for this year and to see how it's going to affect us as an org and individually as players.
Cool. And Shapcap, what are your thoughts as we talk about the, because Josh really didn't talk about the subject I asked him about at all.
Yeah, I did.
Just barely, like you grazed it a little bit with your laser fire.
That was 1 second. That was like just
from here.
It was a comparison from 7 years ago to where we are now.
Yep. Yeah. But
Look, I think,
Chap, what are your thoughts on the whole AI, invisible AI, and how it impacts the economy?
I think that no matter what you do, you're going to need basically a targeting pod right here.
And Chef gets
to spot the cargo so that you can. Yeah, got it.
Anyways, geez, I'm sorry. I derailed myself. I think the invisible AI is something important to be aware of. I think they got to be real careful to not make it seem like a cheaty thing. Like where you don't want the AI to know more than you do or have an advantage just because it is the computer, right? You don't want Skynet to win all the time.
Completely agree. Yeah, you can't. You've got to dumb it down and weight it so that the players have a chance.
Yeah, you've got to have some nice RNG thrown in there for everybody.
Yep, everybody gets a D20.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got to have different level NPCs, right? Some who are better at certain things and have more luck with certain things, and better skilled in all aspects.
And ones that haven't broken up with their girlfriend, apparently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
we'll assign all
My ship
those
will
to
be filled
Josh.
with the guys that just came back from drinking. I know it.
How is that going to be different from playing with org mates on the side?
I don't know, brother. I really don't.
Hey, we're not supposed to have any drama in this org, remember?
We don't, but that doesn't mean that half of them haven't been hitting the bottle pretty hard about 11 p.m.